Greetings, we're back. I'm going to continue with the Skylight flashing set of videos. Last time I got the tape done on our next window. It's all flashing tape and good to go. Okay, so if I didn't mention this already, you didn't hear me say it, buy curb mounted skylights for using a curb. Yeah, obvious, but don't do what I did and get the regular deck mounted skylight and attach it to a curb. Just one extra step in your flashing and it's extra work and silly, so don't do that. Two, again, I'm not a professional at this, and I'm actually trying to do something that's probably not at all like an amazingly good idea, except in that I feel like I'm figuring it out for myself and I'm pretty sure it's going to be fine. But all that is just like relevant for me to say because I would never do this at a client's house building. I just wouldn't, want to ever go back and have to replace somebody else's roof because I did an irregular type of job. All right, enough talking. So this is complicated, and basically, again, you can find. I was not able to find a great deal of material on YouTube for anything that is standing seam. And not even much for material that is like the hand-worked seams. I don't even know the name, but basically roll it out, coil stock, back of the truck, you have a machine that makes roof panels, and when you get up there, you hem them with tools, and so you're able to take a straight vertical, right, a vertical set of pieces of metal, and then you roll them over. So that means they're just vertical. When you're working to make the skylight flashing and the diagonals and all of that, you're not dealing with a clip-on standing seam. So that's a big difference. And that means we've compromised in a couple of places. There's one really good video. You'll probably find it if you look. It's in 4 parts. And it shows how that process is done. You can pick up a lot of information just watching it carefully. And that's good. So I try to translate that process into a standing seam. Now, highly recommend using paper to plan out your folds and your cuts because it allows you to practice. It's super easy to cut, and you can fold it and just see what everything's going to look like. See if your joints are good. You can't see what I'm doing there, but inconvenient tree. Okay. But point is, basically you can figure out your folds, and then you can test them and learn from your mistakes by moving into the sun. And there we go. So let's just say, if you haven't seen anything like this, it's hard to grasp. But what you're looking at is the right-hand side is the middle panel that is on the side of the skylight. This is the upper folding pattern for the left-hand middle panel, right? And I'm starting with the lower. So it's this left-hand piece. Just imagine there's a seam here somewhere. So curb, right? This is your vertical coming at a right angle up off the roof deck. This is the height of the curb, okay? This, I have like 1 inch standing seam, so I'm doing 1 inch on this. The other side, the next piece up, its matching edge, mating edge will be maybe a 1/4 inch taller. So you can roll that over first, and then you roll them both over again. So basically ends up like that. You fold it under, tack it to your curb right there with a nail. You make the next piece, slide it down to this, roll them over. Okay, so a couple of quick things. While we're on this part, make yourself a dot on the roof that is a little bit outside your curb in both dimensions, and measure to the dot. Put the dot on your paper or your metal when you're laying out. Just have a similar reference point. Double check that your curb and skylight are in fact square with your roofing panels as you work up to the window, because that means you have to either oversize the square that you're cutting in the roofing panels, or like I did, I had to adjust the whole thing by 1/8 of an inch so that things wouldn't get wonky, and hopefully I can manage to remember on all the bends. So the curb, because it travels at a 45-degree angle downhill, you do 2 22.5-degree folds sections here, and that adds up to a change in the direction of 45 degrees, which is kind of cool. I mean, I don't really understand what this means, but so 245s equals the 90-degree change here. That's good to know. And so then very specifically, you get in here, have your point. This is on the roof deck. Your curb and your fold are going to intersect right at the corner of the curb. And then you basically do 1, 2, 3. And then you come off to the middle one the same distance as you are from here. Okay, so this distance, these two parallel lines, middle, this outer parallel, are the same width as this line. Okay, and then I just used a comfortable feeling rounded object to connect these 2 points. Okay, that's the best I can do for explaining this. So on this panel, as I lay it out, not a lot of light. So also, when you build your house, make sure your skylights are the correct distance apart so you never have a seam landing on, what is it? Basically the edge of the skylight or curb. If your seam's running into that, you're in trouble. And this is again why standing seam is not that compatible with this idea of flashing a skylight. Okay, just saying. I'm going to fold this. I'm going to use a little tape to cover the bottom of this edge, and it'll be okay. There's plenty of underlayment up there. So we have that upper section laid out. Down here, this is where the next panel up is going to have to do a little, again, do mock-ups of all your little techniques, because it's much better to test it and refine it with little scraps. So this is what I did on the other side, and I was careful to clear enough, and it worked. It all clipped on there. I put some heavy duty sealant caulking I pressed that up inside along with some butyl tape. And this is obviously not a lot of overlap. I know that. I understand. Underlayment and gravity and a little bit of sealant in there. I think things are just going to run off of it. And, it's my house, so I'm testing this. Anyway, you can overlap this, and this is another reason why standing seam is not compatible, because if you just had the regular right angle metal, you just connect this one to that one to that one, and then you roll them all over together. However that works, it would be great, but this is a little more challenging. So all that said, yeah, you can see the layout, a couple of clearance cuts. I left this piece a little bit long because I'm gonna shave it back later when I'm more confident that I got everything right. And then once I get that, I'll measure downhill, put my bottom hem on, and then I'll go up and tack it in place and hope I'll be back. All right, so real quick step in the process. I've got bottom left, middle left, bottom middles. Now I'm doing the bottom right. So this is going to be, in this orientation on the bottom right of the window there where the ladder is running down to the right. So my skylight, as I mentioned before, isn't completely square with the roofing itself up on the roof deck. Plan ahead, everybody, from the beginning. Learn from this. So what I did is I made this 45-degree angle. I cut and marked the same marks on the next piece, which I'm going to take the middle right, so the next piece up out of that piece. So that angle, even if it isn't precisely 45 degrees, which I tried to make it, but it just lines up with the next piece, and therefore the seam will mate together theoretically well. So it's just one thing you could do. Second thing to demonstrate right at this moment is, so I mentioned that the video that I saw where the guy was using non-standing seam, or, tooled in place standing seam, I don't know what you call it, but I think it might have also been aluminum, which between that and a 4-inch curb height makes that process not the same as this process. It looked way easier to do it the way he was doing it. So one, you got your two 22.5-degree angles right here and here. So I'm going to use my left hand and hold this and twist it to raise up the right hand side of that angle. Rotate it this way, while at the same time, one of the few ways in which this tool, lots of these on Amazon and eBay, they're kind of clunky and heavy, and I would only buy this angled one because it does a couple of specific things really well, including scratching the paint. So like, they're not great, but they do a couple of things well. So if I grab the right hand side and lift upwards, so I'm bending this right angle fold right here at the same time as I'm helping the angle buckle upwards. So I do those both at the same time. I'll do that on the other side and the opposite, and then kind of work from there. But you kind of need to bend in two directions plus a twist, and it's challenging. I will at some point kind of go through the tools that I found as a non-professional are effective at getting a lot of these things done. Maybe today, we'll see. So I'm sorry, I don't have a head-mounted camera. I really would help a lot. After I got the first initial lift and bend in the corner, then I'll drop the hemming tool and use the pliers right here at the same time and start the long hem, and then I'll work that up a little higher than the corner. We'll go back to the corner, just kind of do a couple back and forth. You have to go a bit at a time and just work it up. All right, quick portion of the process here. I have, it's gonna be a little tricky to climb around and speak, but I basically have my hems standing there. We have a top panel that runs across, right? So we have bottom panels on this, a couple of side panels with hems on the bottom, side panels with horizontal hems on the top, and then an upper piece of coil stock, which I, in this case, ran up my curb and did a little back fold. I guess that's a technique for sort of slowing down wicking and water pressure. It just keeps it from running uphill a little bit more. The same on the top of this sheet, right? Intricate cutting here. This is part of the reason why you don't want to do this skylight flashing with regular standing seam. As far as I can tell, it's just not really a great plan. But again, I'm feeling fine with this process, and probably good to share it just because I'm doing it so people know. This little 3/4 inch fold will sit inside of the upper rib, the female portion of the rib, and it'll slot in there, which brings of course water could go over the top of this. I did put some sealant between this and the male rib there, but right here, once I put my diagonal, the bottom of my next panel is going to be sloping diagonally. I'm going to do 30 degrees here, and so this spot, there's fluid coming down, water sitting and soaking, and a lot of this water is going to run down here and saturate up here a little bit, right? But basically, aside from this upper crease, I've minimized my leak point to this tiny little square there. So I carefully cut and overlapped and basically bedded it in some pretty solid sealant. The next panel will come over the top of this female rib by that little 1/2 inch or so. We'll seal that as well. So a lot of ways the leaking is going to happen there, but you can see it's not going to leak much. I just say it that way. So this is probably the weakest link in the whole system because the diagonal ones down there will shed water pretty well, and it's just a rib to a rib. So I was able to just simply overlap that, and that was a little easier. But I just wanted to show this. Also did my first fold. So you basically take your lower panel. In my case, because of the seam height, I just did 1 inch. It'd be sweet if I had like 4 inches here and aluminum roofing, and you'd have a lot more space to do this roll, because I'm cutting the upper piece about 1/4 inch, 1 1/4, so 1/4 inch higher than the standing part of the lower, because the upper is then going to fold once, and then you fold them both together again, and that In my case, because this metal is super short and pretty strong because of steel, I'm using a couple of folding tools, trying not to scratch it. Start the first one, use the hammer, rubber hammer. You really have to whack it, get the right angle, try not to hit your panel. I tried putting heavy paper down, but it just ended up with a bunch of dents because I didn't see myself hitting it, so I was less careful the first time. I'd just be careful. And it's difficult. Again, go find the 4-part video, very useful. Watch the whole thing. He has all the correct tools, correct material. That's where you should go seek that technique, not here. But you can see, not horrible. It's, it's gonna work. All right. Quick check-in. Got all the roofing panels in. Gonna take a quick close look to the joints just to see how they're done. We got that little overlap, bottom left. This piece is just folded once and then partially folded a second time, just to see, I guess, what you can. Scrunch it all together, squish it tight, roll it over. Bedding underneath all of that was sealant before I covered the seam with the next panel. So you saw before, we'll fold, made up the bottoms of the panels with the hem, just like at the bottom of the roof with the little cleat piece up under there, and I carefully put the tape and a little caulking, just doing a really good job of making sure keep most of the water from going uphill. Again, these cuts running everything in a detailed fashion up under the seam. You can see how it's mostly standing up. I have just one fold at the top, and it slowly rolls into the double fold, and the whole thing tapers down. It's much flatter at the outside. So any water that's sitting up here, before it's a certain depth, will roll off to the side and down this channel and on the outside of this hem seam. So we're gonna move on with the flashing, maybe today or tomorrow, wrap that up, and then I'll just show what's going on with that, and we'll be done.